Welcome to the Time Machine, the Psyche Unraveled podcast. As a project of the SBC Association of Psychology Students, this podcast discusses how our past, present, and futures can affect who we are today and who we want to become tomorrow.
The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. On our last episode, we invited psychologist Professor Gezelle Grace G. Diez to discuss with us the past. Why the past seems better than the present, why it's important to deal with your past, and when it is time to let go of the past and have closure.
For this episode, our guest speaker is a former guidance facilitator of University of Mindanao, a licensed psychometrician who graduated also from the University of Mindanao, and he is currently taking up his master's in psychology, majoring in clinical psychology with a thesis entitled People with Mental Illness in the Mainstream Muslim Community, Narratives from Magindanaoans, a career advocate and full-time professor of psychology.
Today, we're inviting esteemed psychology professor, sweetheart, darling, and heartthrob of San Pedro College, Professor Omar T. Bualan, to discuss with us the present. Sir, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, sir.
Hello. Ang galing na. Thank you so much for your introduction.
We're so glad to have you join us.
Assalamualaikum, sir.
Alaikum assalam.
Before we start, tatanungin ka muna namin, sir. How are you? And how was your Valentine's?
As of the moment, I can say that I am happy, satisfied for the life that I have, no? Including my love life, siguro. Siguro, but may siguro. And just enjoying the moment. So far, wala rin naman mahikiling. Maliban lang sa safety ng lahat, no? Including my family and kayo mismo, my students.
So, sir, sana all may someone during this pandemic. And since we were talking about, being able to cope up with it, can you mention some ways that this pandemic has actually affected you?
When it comes to the COVID-2019, no, for the first few months siguro, like 4 months, di ba nag-start ito siya, nagkaroon tayo ng, akala ko lang is 3 days lang na class suspension, pero umabot na pala ng ilang months, no, until July.
Yes.
So that's my birthday, no, July 20. So I can say that it is really difficult for me to adjust, especially that we are not really into this one. We are not really prepared in the situation that we have. So imagine yourself, no, you have no interaction with people for a long time. So we have no social interaction. But I think being an introvert person, it somehow helped me a lot. I consider this one as advantage among people who are introverted. Why? Because we are not really into people. Ang inaalala ko ngayon is yung mga extroverted people.
Yeah.
Si Ameerah ba? May pagka-extrovert ka ba? Or introvert?
Introvert po ako, sir.
Ikaw ba, Yumi?
50-50, but more on introverted side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, surprisingly.
That's a good thing, no? Yeah, ito yung isa sa mga positive impact ng pagiging psychology major kasi kaya natin i-apply yung mga natutunan natin, yung mga principles and theories mayroon tayo in our field.
And for sure, there were a lot of changes brought about by the pandemic. Out of all the changes, which of those were significant in your life?
I know when it comes to changes naman, no, meron pwedeng maging negative or pwedeng maging positive. But no, as an introvert person, when it comes to the changes, I can see this as an opportunity for me to really focus on myself, to focus on my family, and to focus on, yung pinaka-importante kasi yung health talaga natin, which is ito yung somehow napapabayaan natin during the normal days that we have, though. Pag nasa school tayo. So siguro, when it comes to that, isa sa masasabi ko na positive changes is that mas nakafocus ako more of sa self ko ngayon. Exercise, meditation, and of course, no, yung family, mas madalas yung communication namin with the family. So perhaps ganun din yung nararanasan ng karamihan sa atin, of course, no. When it comes to the negative na changes na nangyari siguro is, even though we are introverted people, but still kailangan ko pa rin ng social interaction. Hindi rin pwede din na parati ka lang mag-isa. So I think isa rin ito siya sa mga bagay na nakaka-apekto sa atin negatively in a way na yung mga best friends natin dati, yung mga close friends natin sa school, hindi natin masyado nakakausap. Iba rin kasi talaga yung pakiramdam, no? Kapag
Yes.
may actual talaga na interaction kaysa sa yung naka-online platform lang kayo, gumagamit ng Messenger or Zoom ba. But still, nakakatulong siya, di ba?
So, how did you cope with the pandemic, sir?
When it comes to my coping naman, as what I've said, it was easy for me given that I am an introvert person. So I am more productive whenever I am alone. But of course, I still need people to interact with. And I don't know kung nakita ninyo yung mga activities ko during the first few months of the pandemic. Ang dami kong pinost about facts about psychology. In fact, I created this IG for my personal, na mura siya reviewer para sa akin, but I allow also my students to visit this. I don't know if you're familiar with the Malleus Maleficarum, so I posted some of the basic facts about psychology. Yun lang din yung mga personal reviewer ko to keep myself busy during the pandemic kasi kapag ka medyo bored ka na, nakaka-create yun ng negative emotion, no? Parang ang daming pumapasok sa isip mo pero mostly negative talaga, no? So you have to keep yourself busy so that hindi ka kumbaga wala kang time to think negatively.
But sir, isn't it difficult to like juggle all of these parang activities all at once?
Yes, of course. No. Kung kaya naman natin, kung gusto nyo, pagsabayin, it's okay. Pero ang importante kasi is ma-feel mo at the end of the day na you are productive. No? So, importante kasi yun. No? Kaya nga sinasabi ko parati na sa lahat ng ginagawa natin, we have to find purpose. We have to give meaning on it so that at the end of the day, makarealize ka sa self mo na naging productive ka or may nagawa kang something.
Sir, I understand that you must have been doing really well because of all these helpful coping mechanisms, but despite all of these, sir, did you ever think about giving up?
Not really. I don't know if what is our concept about giving up, but actually, when I talk about of giving up, no, actually we don't have any choice over this pandemic but to fight, no. Kay kung mo give up man good ta, wala gyapon may tabo, no. So kita lay luoy. So the only choice that we have is again to fight, no. Kailangan nating gumawa ng paraan, not really to, of course, we are in the psych field, no. So wala tayo dun sa area kung saan kailangan natin isolve yung problem by creating a vaccine. But again, since wala tayo dun, even though wala tayo dun sa field na yun, but still, we can always find a solution to adapt to our environment, to adapt to the changes that we have. No? Kasi kahit ano yung gawin natin, hindi lang naman yung pandemic talaga yung nakaka-cause talaga ng somehow challenging para sa atin. Hindi ito siya yung, kumbaga isang reason lang ito siya, or isang way lang ito siya para matest talaga kung gaano tayo ka-strong. Kung titingnan natin, sobrang daming mga possible na changes na mangyari sa life natin. But at times, hindi na natin tinitingnan iyon kasi hindi siya ganun kabigat.
Alam mo yung gustong-gusto ko yung narinig ko na, kalimutan ko saan ko siya narinig, pero yung choose your battles. Parang marirelate din siya sa sinabi ni Sir, di ba? And, Sir,
kahit anong choices mayroon ka, still, mayroon at mayroon pa rin dapat sacrifice. Mayroon at mayroon ka pa rin kakaharaping problema. So, the only thing that you can do is to choose against, kagaya nga ng sabi ni Ameerah, choose your own battle.
Sir, do you think it gave you a crisis po?
Somehow, yes. I can say yes. I think because of the pandemic, it creates fear and anxiety, of course. Not just to me, but perhaps to a lot of people right now who are experiencing this emotion. To the extent that I always check my family, relatives, and even kayo, my students, and some other significant people sa life ko. Because of this kasi, parang ang dami pumapasok sa isip ko na kumusta naman kaya si ganito. May naririnig ako na sorry to tell this, pero may mga namamatay talaga because of this pandemic. And of course, ayoko na mangyari yun siya sa mga tao na nakilala ko. Yun ang ina-pray talaga natin. And somehow, yun yung nagkaka-create sa akin doon ng crisis. No, parang para sa akin is that because of this pandemic, hindi ko alam kung paano ko sila i-reach out. Hindi ko alam kung paano ako makakatulong. Parang ganun na pakiramdam. So that's, I think, one of the challenging part brought about by this pandemic.
Well, sir, since freshman pa man ako, it's my first year in psychology. Do you think you could share about how your background in psychology helped you cope up with this pandemic? Maybe may mga strategies ka, may mga secrets na pwedeng i-share with us.
When it comes to the background in psychology, you know what, Yumi, ang dami nating mga theories and principles na pwede talaga magamit in psychology. And
Mm-mm.
mamamangha ka talaga, especially pag dating mo ng second year. Isa sa pinaka-challenging yet pinaka-interesting na part ng pagiging psych. So when it comes to the strategies naman, no, ayan yung maganda sa atin as a psych because pwede natin i-consider yung self natin as also part of the frontliner, no? But kumbaga iba lang yung service na binibigyan natin. Minsan nga hindi yun siya nare-recognize ng ibang tao. It is because hindi na natin kailangan sabihin na tumutulong tayo sa kapwa natin. And the thing here is that when it comes to the background in psychology, I always, yun yung sabi ko, no? We thought that in psychology, for us to become mentally healthy, mentally fit, so we have also to be physically fit. So I do exercise, workout.
Mm-mm.
That's every day siguro siya or sa isang week, nasa mga 5 times, no? Ako nakaka-workout. That's 2 hours a day, something like that. Yes. So actually, napaka-helpful ng workout, no? Kasi nakaka-boost siya. Aside from self-esteem, also, ginalift niya yung self mo mismo, yung self-esteem mo mismo. And aside from that, napaka-importante nito siya sa concept ng counseling and psychotherapy. That's meditation because through this meditation, mas nakaka-focus ka kung ano yung nasa present, kung ano yung mayroon ka as of the moment, which is really helpful now when it comes to in dealing with these challenges that we have. Then other than that, we have also know in psychology, we learned that kapag ka parate kang mag-isa, nakahiga ka lang parate, it creates negative thoughts, especially pag gabi, no? Kaya nga, parati ko sinasabi sa mga students ko na wag kayong mag-iisip ng kahit anong bagay pag gabi. Kasi yung positive na thoughts mayroon ka, yung positive na mga ideas mayroon ka is pwede siya mag-turn into negative one. Ganon ka-powerful yung
Mind.
yes, yung kapag kagabi ka nag-iisip. So, yun yung sinasabi ko, you have to keep yourself busy, no? And also be energetic. Listen to positive music as we all know. Pag nakakarinig ka ng positive music, naniniwala ba kayo sa nurture and nature versus nurture?
Yes.
That no,
Yes.
on the nurture part, we all know na yung environment mayroon tayo. Nakaka-apekto talaga ito siya. Doon sa state mayroon tayo. Let's
Exactly.
say mental state or emotional state. So, pag nakikinig ka ng mga positive music, of course, apektado ka in a positive manner. So, kung makikinig ka lang din naman ng music, choose music na nakakapag-good vibes. Ang daming music actually na kung gusto niyo i-send ko sa inyo eh.
Wow.
That's the background that I have now. And useful masyado siya. I drink a plenty of water, no, especially before matulog or pagkagising mo mismo sa morning. Ang sarap sa pakiramdam kasi na naalaga natin ang katawan natin.
What if nangyari ang pandemic na nasa college ka pa, sir? Do you think you would have dealt with this pandemic differently?
College, medyo challenging siya na question, no, na
Yeah.
na pa-reflect ako doon ng konti. So when it comes to coping style naman, we have our own unique ways on how to cope, no? And it always depends upon the person naman. But for me, if I were a student, I would rather make myself busy. That's the only thing na pwede kong masabi, no? In relation, no? Kung ano yung iniisip ko ngayon, kung ano yung ginagawa ko ngayon, perhaps applicable din siya among college student. Kagaya nung sinabi ko kanina, no, when it comes to our personality, it has really an impact when it comes to how we dealt with the situation that we have. Especially kung may pagka-introverted type of person ka. Ako kasi when I was in college, I was really a shy type person and I don't really hang out with my classmates, friends. So if I were a student today, it would be not so difficult for me to cope since I'm an introvert person. And the thing here is that may mga extroverted students tayo, no? And siguro isa ito siya sa pinaka-challenging na part to them since they're into people talaga, no? So yung sa students kasi, no, if kayo mismo nakaka-experience ito, I ask some of my students ano yung mga concern nila during the pandemic, and I also try myself to become more somehow empathic to that matter, no. So yun nga, isa sa mga problem pala talaga ng mga students is kayo perhaps, no, nakaka-experience kayo nito. Pinakakalaban talaga natin is self-control. And kung ako siguro, student pa ako way back, ito rin yung magiging kalaban ko talaga. Even today, na teacher niyo ako ngayon, still nakaka-experience ako ng itong tinatawag natin na lack of self-control. So ano ba yung self-control? Minsan, kapag ka nasa bed tayo, nag-aaral tayo, ang namin kakompetensya si teacher. Pwedeng andyan yung bed, andyan yung food sa ref natin, no? Food
Yes.
and maingay na siblings, family. No, yan yung isa sa mga problem talaga natin. And I think it's a very challenging one. No? So, for us, no, to cope up with this one, kung ako yung estudyante siguro, pinaka-challenging na part nun is to have this self-control. As much as possible, we can always control naman ourselves, no? Yun yung sinasabi ko parate. But we have our own different ways on how to control naman din. No?
Yeah.
Minsan hindi natin nakokontrol yung environment natin. So, siguro, just ask your family to give time for you to focus on your academics, no? Like kung mayroon kayong classic, because yun nga, during our online class, parati ko to siya na-experience pag nagpapa-oral recitation ako. Nagsusorry sila kasi, sir, sorry kasi inutusan pa ako, ganyan. Or sorry, sir, maingay yung kapatid ko andito. So siguro, yung importante dito is we have to talk to our family, talk to our both parents na during the class, no, kailangan talaga is bigyan tayo ng time to focus, to concentrate. And again, isa sa mga gusto kong ikon dito is dapat medyo lumayo tayo sa bed natin para hindi tayo antukin sa foods. Okay na naman siguro kumain, but make sure na yung kinakain natin is hindi nakakapantok. So that's the thing here. Kung ako yung nasa situation ninyo as a student, ganun yung gagawin ko. It's something to do with self-control lang talaga.
Yes, mahirap talaga yung self-control na yan.
Yeah.
Or sometimes may control ka, pero sometimes you
Yung
just
environment
not to
naman.
control. Oo. Kaya,
I see.
About extroverts, no, it's really of course it's a very much a challenge because they rely on extroverts rely on people and company. So, diba, Ameerah?
Yes, mahirap talaga for them. And even for me, I could say na introvert ako, pero katagalan, mamimiss mo yung mga friends mo.
Yeah.
You want to meet them
Oo.
personally, right?
True. Kasi we also before COVID, we had our daily routines. May mga ano na tayo, parang habits
True.
na and mga parang our therapeutic
Yes.
parang mga habits ba, like going on a walk, taking a breeze outside, ganun. Pero bawal lumabas. Yeah.
True.
Anyway, sir, speaking of college and we're all still very young. Do you think that age affects the way we think and deal with these problems in life?
When it comes to our age naman, developmental crisis can be actually the contributing factor when it comes to how the individual deal with the problems that we have in general. Let's say for example, adolescents, no, and kayo as a young adult, no. I think part na ba kayo ng young adult or nasa adolescence pa kayo?
young adult.
Yes po, sir. Young
Perhaps si
adult.
Yumi nasa
Actually, nasa young adult na po ako.
young adult na.
Yes
Okay.
po.
So, according to study kasi mayroon gikandak ngayon na study no, among adolescents and young adulthood that as we all know, we are experiencing this what's so called role confusion and quarter life crisis, which is kayo nakaka-experience kayo nitong quarter life crisis as part of the young adult crisis or young adult stage. So this quarter life crisis actually and yung nai-experience ng mga adolescents natin as of the moment, which is yung nagkakaroon tayo ng role confusion. Ito kasi yung nag-lead sa atin to face such crisis or kumbaga ang nagiging impact nito sa sarili mo is nawawalan tayo ng motivation. Remember that whenever we experience quarter life crisis, ito na yung mga moment na nagkakaroon tayo ng parang somehow question kung saan ba tayo patungo kumbaga ito yung moment na nagkakaroon kasi tayo ng mga insecurities sa sarili natin eh. And isa sa mga contributing factor din sa pag-iisip natin ng mga ganitong bagay, yung mga uncertainties meron tayo. And our tendency to somehow, parang ginagawa natin is kino-compare natin yung sarili natin with that of the other people. Yung social media, nakaka-influence talaga ito siya sa atin in a negative manner. No? Ang ginagawa kasi natin is through social media, parang sinasabi natin kagad sa sarili natin na ang dami na niyang na-achieve, ang dami na niyang nagawa. So, ako, andito pa rin. Nasa kwarto na ako. Saan ba ako papunta? Ano ba yung magiging goal ko talaga sa life ko? Ito na yung nakakakuan sa atin. Ito yung nagli-lead sa atin into that feeling of demotivation, or can we call it a motivation, something like that. So that's in short, it's a lack of motivation. So that's alam niyo ba na may may new study tayo. I think that was last year, or August 2020 pa siguro ito siya, among young adulthood and adolescents. Sinasabi dito that especially among women, Ameerah and Yumi, siguro perhaps nakaka-experience kayo nito, that because of the pandemic, mas nakaka-feel daw tayo ng pessimism, or nagiging pessimistic tayo, in short, about our future. There are a lot of uncertainties, like makakatapos ba ako? Baka mag-close yung school namin. The good thing is, yung SPC hindi na yung magko-close, isa sa pinaka pwede natin sabihin na sure tayo na makakatapos kayo at kaganda yung future niyo sa San Pedro College. Pero may mga iba talaga sa parents na wala ng business. Kayo mismo as a student, minsan ang daming mga bagay na iniisip kayo. Makakaya mo ba yung performance na ibibigay sa atin? Especially that we are not really good into this in this platform. Of course, ang dami talaga sa atin na apektuhan nito. Even ako, the way I teach, apektado rin masyado ito siya. Nahirapan din ako. But of course, that's part of our job, to analyze and to somehow improve our teaching style. But sa part ninyo, at times minsan nahihirapan talaga tayo. Paano ba natin i-improve yung performance natin? Kasi nga, yun sabi natin kanina, isa sa problema talaga natin, is yung sarili natin mismo, yung self-control, tinatawag natin na self-control.
Yeah, that's true, Paul. I agree with what you said about how adolescents or even people our age, we go through, role confusion, as you mentioned, or even demotivation, because we spend most of our days na talaga through social media, and we only see half the truth, yung mga achievements lang talaga nila, and not like how they go through to get that successful. Speaking about role confusion, it is no doubt talaga na halos lahat tayo nahihirapan dahil sa pandemic.
And for us, mga extroverts who are used to seeing our friends, spending time with them, and walking the halls of San Pedro College, how do you think this is all affecting us psychologically?
When it comes to our personality traits, we have our differences when it comes to how we cope with the situation that they have, not just in the pandemic, but of course in general. But now specifically in this pandemic, among extroverted people, mostly are very comfortable and contented being with people. Among introverted naman, happy na tayo na ganito yung situation. Hindi natin pinapanalangin na ganito yung mangyari sa atin. But of course, somehow, mayroon siyang advantage sa part ng mga introverted people, people who are having introverted traits. But one of the challenging part here is, of course, hindi tayo pwede maging selfish. We have also to tingnan natin, isaalang-alang natin yung mga kapakanan ng mga people who are extroverted by nature. As we all know, nanggagaling yung energy nila doon sa pakikipag-interact ng ibang tao. So perhaps because of this lack or restriction of social interaction, since na nagkakaroon sila ng limitation when it comes to socialization,
Mhm.
having fun with their friends. No? So ito yung nagre-result sa kanila into feeling of isolation and lack of energy. But the good thing here
Mm-mm.
is that nakaka-proud lang marinig na even though may mga counseling din kasi ako na minsan may mga counseling kasi ako through online. Isa sa pinaka nakaka-proud na part doon is that even though nakaka-feel sila ng isolation and lack of energy, but still kinakaya rin pala nila, no? Kumbaga nakaka-cope pa rin naman sila with the situation that they have. Through the use of course, no, yung mga social media, still andun pa rin. Pero iba pa rin talaga daw yung pakiramdam kapag mayroon talagang actual interaction with that of their friends. So that's,
That's
I
true.
think, no, that's isolation talaga yung problem and lack of energy. Which is somehow, ito rin siguro yung reason bakit hindi lang sa aspeto ng socialization but of course, even in our academic performance. As we all know, kapag ang extroverted type of person is mayroon interaction with that of the other people, of course, affected din ang kanilang academic performance.
Mm-mm.
Yes, may kilala akong may friend ako na talagang active siya and then yun nga ito, COVID
Mm.
happened. And parang hindi talaga siya sanay and then
Oo.
nag-share siya sa akin na, uy, gusto ko na talagang lumabas, ganyan. Pero yun hindi
Bawal
talaga din
lumabas.
pwede, di ba? Oo,
Mm-mm.
Mm.
bawal nga lumabas.
Kasi bawal lumabas.
Oo. Um, Sir, may nabanggit ka kanina about quarter life crisis na mas lalong na-magnify dahil
Mm.
sa pandemic na, alam
Yes.
mo yun,
Yes.
um, uncertainties, na hindi
Mm.
natin alam kung ano yung dadalhin ng bukas. Sir, have you ever experienced an existential crisis to that level?
Mm. Parang naka-reflect ako doon ng konti, no? Pwede natin siya ma-experience at any age. In fact, as early as 18 years of age, no, pwede na tayo maka-experience nun. For as long as naka-reflect tayo, for as long as yung situation mayroon tayo is na-force tayo to think about the meaning of life, the purpose of what we are doing. So, perhaps sa akin kasi, for as long as alam mo yung ginagawa mo, for as long as you know your purpose, tumutulong ka
Mhm.
sa ibang tao, which is, ito yung pinaka sinasabi ko na kung gusto mo talaga, sabi ko na mabuhay to the fullest, then you have to help other people. Kasi through this, makikita mo kung ano yung purpose ng ginagawa mo. And through that, somehow nalilisten or nawawala, no, yung feeling natin, yung experience natin of such existential crisis. So somehow sa akin siguro masasabi ko na so far because of this pandemic hindi ko naman somehow na feel na natanong ko
Mm-mm.
kung ano yung value, ano yung purpose ng ginagawa ko. Kasi every time na may ginagawa ko na isang bagay, I always dedicate this one to people, of course. Like for example,
Mm-mm.
in teaching, napili ko yung teaching kasi parang ang dami kong nasi-share. The more na marami
Mm-mm.
ako nasi-share, I consider this one as, in short, love serves, no? Hindi lang ako nagtuturo because
Mm-mm.
binabayaran ako, but this is my passion. This is parang para sa akin is through this nakakatulong ako sa kapwa ko,
Yeah.
nakakatulong ako sa mga students ko. And I think somehow nawala yung idea ko about the experience of this type of crisis.
Mm-mm. Curious ako, sir.
Mm.
You mentioned that you love teaching, so maybe you could also teach us about how you dealt with this situation. Or what steps did you take?
When it comes to this matter, for me, hindi siya
Mm-mm.
siguro step-by-step process, but there are some ways on how to help ourselves on how to deal with the quarter life crisis that we are experiencing as of the moment. And kagaya ng sinabi kanina ni Yumi, mas namamagnify natin siya. Parang mas nagsanib puwersa yung pandemic sa yung nafe-feel natin na quarter life crisis. But yun yung sabi natin kanina, no, na nasagot natin yung isang step doon or nasagot natin yung isang way doon on how to cope with the situation that we
Mm.
have. And the first one here is, again, stop or never compare yourself with that of the other people.
Mm-mm.
Because again, meron tayong kanya-kanyang buhay. Hindi ka
Yeah.
katulad niya. Si Yumi, hindi siya kagaya ni Ameerah, and si Ameerah is
Mm-mm.
never magiging si Yumi. So remember that one, guys. Because through social comparison kasi dito, nagkakaroon tayo ng pressure.
Mm-mm.
Nagkakaroon tayo ng parang, of course, yung sabi natin, anxiety and uncertainty. Kasi nga, parang pakiramdam natin, masyado tayong stuck. Parang hindi tayo nag-move forward compared with that of the other people. So,
Yeah.
the only way to stop that way of thinking is, again, not to compare with ourselves with
Mm-mm.
that of the other people, because it only creates somehow insecurities to ourselves. And
Mm-mm.
another one siguro na pwede kong masuggest is, of course, no, we have to admit that there is a problem. We have to talk about this one. We have to seek help, of course. Not just, hindi lang naman kailangan yung help talaga ng professional, but of course, our friends, our
Yeah.
loved ones, kung sino yung pinagkakatiwalaan natin. Ikaw ba, Yumi,
Yes po.
sino ba usually yung mga pinagkakatiwalaan mo na tao?
Mostly my family since very close kami.
Really?
Yes po. I've actually been homeschooled for 10 years, so very tight talaga ang ano namin. Sanay na ako
Mm.
sa bahay.
So parang masasabi talaga na swerte, no? Kasi,
Opo, yes po.
how about si Ameerah?
Hmm, close friends ko po usually. Pero minsan, family din. Kasi, just like you, me, I'm close with my family naman din. Siguro, kaya ganun. Kasi, ayoko lang na nakikita ako ng family ko na may pinagdadaan ng problema.
So yeah, just like what Sir Omar said, Ameerah, no, hindi talaga ma-compare yung ano natin lives with each other kasi iba-iba.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, aside from that, we have also to quit ourselves, no, from saying, ito yung dapat na gawin ko. Ito yung dapat na maging ako. Kasi isa rin ito siya sa nakaka-put ng pressure to ourselves. So,
Mm-mm.
again, remember to, of course, take one step at a time lang. No? Huwag parating isipin. Don't be a tyranny of what's so called shoulds. No? That's part of your discussion in neurotic trends. Tama ba ko? Neurotic trends. Na kapag parati mong sinasabi na ito yung dapat, ito yung nararapat, it really creates anxiety to us. Ang sinasabi lang doon, it creates somewhat like neurotic feelings, no?
Yeah.
So we don't have to push ourselves just to prove na meron tayong ikabuga, no? Of course,
Mm-mm.
yung pinaka-importante dyan is take one step at a time lang.
Yes.
And aside from that siguro, masasabi ko na yung kanina sinabi natin, we have to find support, just like
Yeah.
our family, our friends, and of course, so, professional help kung gusto ninyo. And the good thing about us is that tayo ng mga psych, we are very willing to help other people. So sa mga nakikinig siguro sa podcast na to, masasabi ko lang is hindi lang tayo pwede mag-share sa mga professionals, sa mga graduate
Mm-mm.
na in psychology, but of course, even yung mga psych students, for as long as alam mo sa sarili mo na nakakatulong sila, of course, pwede mo silang lapitan. So, andyan yung mga psych friends natin,
Mm-mm.
even though strangers sila, but still, naniniwala ko that they're also open. Kasi nakapag-usap na rin kami ng mga students ko, especially yung mga third year natin. So, kung may mga non-psych dito, yung mga non-psych na viewer, you can always seek help. Somehow, pwede natin lapitan yung
Mm-mm.
mga psych students.
Yeah.
Then, the last one is, again, put yourself out there. No? Isa
Mm-mm.
kasi sa mga problem natin, by the way, bakit tayo nakaka-feel nitong mga lack of motivation? Since 1 year, almost 1 year na tayo nag-stay at home, since parati tayo nasa kwarto, walang ibang environment. Yun yung nakaka-create sa atin ng feeling of parang na-stuck ka sa kwarto mo. So, yun yung nakaka-contribute doon sa pakiramdam na parang nawawalan tayo ng motivation. So,
Mm-mm.
kailangan natin, of course, no, since medyo maluwag-luwag naman, hindi ko naman sinasabi na kailangan natin lumabas talaga kasi pwede nang lumabas, no? Pwede nang lumabas. But Of
Oo.
course, kahit pag pumunta ka lang dyan sa bakuran niyo, kahit pumunta ka lang sa ibang kwarto naman, sa kwarto ng parents mo, makipaglaro ka sa dogs, perhaps pwede kang mag-jogging sa subdivision ninyo or
Mm.
kung saan ka man nakatira. That's good kasi the more kasi na iniiba natin yung environment natin, the more na mas nagiging positive tayo, mas nakikita natin yung mga different possibilities
Yeah.
na marirealize natin na hindi tayo actually nawawalan ng freedom, hindi tayo nawawalan ng choice, no? Even though may pandemic, pero marami tayong magagawa pa rin. So something like that. Kasi kapag ka nasa kwarto ka lang, yun yung nag-create sa'yo doon ng lack of motivation. Probably because wala ka ng ibang maisip, yung utak mo is nakafocus lang sa isang bagay. Just like also with our online class, no? Kapag ka parati tayo nakafocus sa class, minsan nawawala na rin tayo ng motivation. Kasi parang pakiramdam natin wala tayong choice over this but to listen, to memorize, and ano ba yung mga ibang bagay na dapat natin gawin para matapos natin yung course natin sa psychology or para makapasa tayo sa subject mayroon tayo ngayon.
Mm.
So, importante rin masyado yun. Tingnan mo rin yung ibang aspeto ng life mayroon ka. Because kung ano man yung mayroon ka ngayon, pinag-aaralan mo ngayon, that's just part of your life. Hindi siya pwedeng maging entire life mo. Kasi pag ganun yung nangyari, let's say, nabagsak ka sa isang quiz, more likely, grabe ka affected.
Yeah.
Grabe yung effect nun sa'yo. It is because parati mong sinasabi na dapat ganito. So, pumapasok pa rin doon yung tyranny of shoulds, no? Na parang dapat ganito. Pero kapag ka nakafocus ka sa other aspect of your life, then more likely, bumabalik unti-unti yung motivation mayroon ka. So, wag mong kakalimutan yung family mo. Wag mo rin kalimutan ma-in love, kagaya ng sinabi sa mga post, no? Wag masyado puros trabaho, wag puros study. Kailangan mo rin ng love life. So that somehow ma-alter din yung perception. And I think yun yung mga tips na pwede kong masabi for us to overcome the crisis that we are experiencing right now.
Narinig mo yan, Ameerah? Kailangan mo ng love life.
Kailangan din ng love life.
Ano yan? Wala tayong love life. No? Pero iba-iba din kasi tayo ng solusyon, di ba? May iba na
True.
nakukuha
Yes.
nila sa relationship, may iba naman na sa family, gaya ng sabi ni Sir. At saka may iba din kasi na, alam mo yung sinasabi nilang, nasasabi mo lang yan kasi may trabaho ka na or like successful ka na. Alam mo
Yes.
yun?
Yeah.
Sir, ano ba sa tingin mo, paano namin i-deal yung quarter life crisis na we're like, andito pa kami, college pa kami, wala pa kami doon sa point na narating na namin yung gusto naming marating.
For us naman kasi, yun yung sinasabi natin, no? Minsan sa generation natin, especially among Gen Z, no, masyado tayong, sorry sa term, but somehow we are atat, no, na ma-achieve ko ano yung mga na-achieve ng mga let's say nakagraduate na, no? At times kasi masyadong idealistic tayo. Parati natin sinasabi sa sarili natin, doon pumapasok pa rin yung should natin na dapat ganito na ako, dapat nakatapos na ako ng college, nagtatrabaho na ako. So, yung mga ganun na idea, minsan kasi hindi natin nare-realize na again, kailangan natin ng tinatawag na process, no? Kasi hindi ka naman pwede maging professional na hindi mo maipapasa yung mga subjects mayroon ka in psychology. Remember guys that kumbaga sa outside world pa, right after your graduation, marirealize mo na hindi pala basta-basta yung pagtatrabaho. Na kung iisipin natin, kung kayo as a student, mayroon kayong mga task na binibigay ni teacher, the same pa rin yung idea pag nagtatrabaho ka. Ang pinagkaiba lang siguro is nakikita mo na pag nagtatrabaho ka, may sweldo, may nakikita kang pera. Pero in your part naman siguro, your grades will serve as your reward, no? That's the thing here. But remember guys that kung ano man or kung nasaan man kayo, that's really part of the process. And of course, no, kailangan natin to siya pagdaanan kasi hindi tayo makakapunta dun sa kung ano yung goal natin, kung ano yung gusto natin marating, kung hindi natin ititrain yung sarili natin. So, always remember to think about what is at the present moment. kung ano yung mayroon ka ngayon. That's the process, and trust those processes that you have.
I agree. Trust the process talaga. Mm, sir, given how problems create a lot of stress and weaken our cognitive abilities, paano ba natin ma-make sure na we're not making any careless mistakes as we try to fight these mental battles?
Hmm. Talking about mistakes, alam naman natin na mistakes is always part of our life. It's always part of our experience.
Mm-hmm.
And through these mistakes, nakaka-learn tayo. Actually, parati ko sinasabi sa mga students ko na especially during our recitation, oral recitation, parati ko sinasabi na kung magkamali kayo, it's okay kasi itatama naman natin yan. And that's really part of ourselves. No? Hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na perfecto tayo.
Uh-huh.
So, if it creates stress and somehow, no, nag-awaken siya doon sa tinatawag natin na cognitive abilities meron kayo, that's okay. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay? But you still have to somehow, no, find ways to improve the mistakes that you have. Hindi rin natin pwedeng i-excuse parate na nagkamali ka lang. Because again, habang nagkakamali tayo, we learn from that mistake, from those mistakes. So we have to somehow improve. Hindi natin ulitin yung pagkakamali na yon. But again, as of the moment, just try to forgive yourself because again, lahat tayo nagkakamali naman talaga.
In our
Yes.
in our online class situation, sometimes we feel overwhelmed by the responsibilities, like you mentioned po earlier. Perhaps some might be experiencing yung called occupational burnout. How do we
Occupational burnout.
overcome? Yes, po. How do we overcome this burnout from online classes?
Uh, for my students and also sa self ko na because I also
Mm-mm.
experience sometimes this occupational burnout. I always remind my student that schooling is just part of their lives and not really the entire or whole life that they have no. So again, nandiyan yung family natin, pwede tayong makapag-interact sa kanila, sa friends natin, even though malayo sila, but andyan naman yung Zoom, andyan naman yung Messenger, pwede tayo anytime makipag-communicate sa kanila, and always give time to yourself. Do some exercise, of course. Ito yung pinaka-importante sa akin, no, na parati kong sinasabi, the more na physically fit tayo, mas nagiging mentally fit din tayo. So,
Mm.
nagdadala talaga siya ng positive energy sa atin eh. No? Kaya nga, yan yung isa sa number one talaga na sinasabi ko na if possible, kung kaya natin gawin, kung pwede tayong mag-start ngayon, gawin natin. Of course, paano natin to siya magagawa? Through time management. Importante masyado yung time management. And of course, learn to give time to yourself. Yan yung pinaka-importante. Kaya nga,
True.
no, as much as possible, try to have that me time.
Yeah, that's true. Siguro ano no, Ameerah, hindi na kulang lang talaga ako ng exercise. Okay naman ako sa
Agree.
pagkain.
Ako din.
Pagka,
Okay na ako doon. Yeah.
and
For some,
remember also, sorry,
mm, yes,
remember also that you're doing this because you want to improve yourself, that you want
mm,
to become a better person someday. Perhaps you
mm.
want to help other people through this profession. So how can you help other people if you yourself is already deteriorating? So be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the most important one.
It's not bad to take some time for yourself. Yung ganun. For some people, this
Mhm.
pandemic has been a room full of opportunities. We know some people who decided to start online businesses, some who decided to have online jobs, and some who managed to productively use their time to develop skills, talents, and hobbies. But for some, it's been a disaster. There are those who lost loved ones, some who are now dealing with financial uncertainties. There are also some of us who are left struggling academically, some who failed last semester and became irregular students or fully dropped out to take some time.
And some of us feel as if we're getting left behind, and we feel
Mm-mm.
incredibly pressured with all that's happening around us. Sir, what can you say to those who are in these situations? How should we deal with all of these internal and external pressures in life?
Okay, so when it comes to the pressures in life naman, how do we cope with the pressures that we have in our life? First one is, no, Always take time and focus on where you are right now. Mag-focus ka lang kung ano yung present moment na mayroon ka. Remember that today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Keep pushing forward and never give up. Remind yourself to take one step at a time. Ito lang kasi yung pinaka-importante dito. And again guys, you are still young. You still have a lot of time. Napakabata pa natin para ma-pressure. So take time to enjoy the process. And that's the most important one here. And it's okay that you are struggling right now. It's okay that you're getting left behind. Hindi mo naman kailangan makipagsabayan sa iba kasi hindi ka sila at lalong-lalong hindi sila magiging ikaw. This is your own unique story to tell, no? Kung nahihirapan ka ngayon, always remember, kagaya ng sinabi ko, just trust the process. Gawin mo kung ano yung makakaya mo para ma-improve yung situation mayroon ka. Seek help, no? Hindi masamang maghanap ng tulong ng ibang tao and just
Yeah.
set yourself up to be ready for these challenges.
If we're going to face those kinds of challenges, how do we set ourselves up to be ready for it?
So we have to think of what is here and now. And through that, we can live peacefully. And that's the most important thing na dapat natin isipin. We have to train or we have to practice ourselves to think of what is here and now. Kung ano yung mayroon ka in the present moment. Kasi ito lang yung kaya mong i-control ngayon. Alam nyo guys, may tendency yung utak natin na isipin kung ano yung mangyayari sa atin sa future. And that's normal kasi nga we are anticipating something. So imagine guys, ganito yung situation natin. Parang gabi lang yan siya bago tayo mag-outing together with our family or together with our friends. Dahil sa sobrang excited mo, tuwang-tuwa ka sa kung ano yung posibleng mangyayari pagkabukas, dahil sa kakaisip mo, nakalimutan mo ng mag-uumaga na pala. Aside sa hindi ka nakatulog na maayos, hindi ka pa nakaprepare ng gamit mo dahil sa kakaisip mo kung ano yung dapat mong gawin. So para yun siya yung future self natin guys. Siguro iniisip mo ngayon kung ano yung mangyayari sa'yo in the future or kung anong dapat na maging ikaw in the future sa kakaisip mo ng maging ideal self mo or sa kakaisip mo kung sinong magiging ideal self mo, nakalimutan mo mabuhay at the present moment. Kung tutusin, ito yung pinaka-importante sa lahat, no? Nakalimutan mo kung ano ka at kung sino ka, kung anong mayroon ka ngayon. And dahil sa atat na atat kang dumating yung future self mo, nakalimutan mo, alagaan yung present self mayroon ka. So as a result, ano yung nangyayari? Hindi ka na nakakakain ng tama, hindi ka nakakatulog ng nasa tamang oras, nakakalimutan mong uminom ng tubig, which is napaka-importante, no? Mag-exercise. That's it, no? Yung present moment ang pinaka-importante sa lahat. Kasi ito yung reality, no? Ito yung mayroon tayo as of the moment. Huwag mo nang isipin ang mga bagay na di pa naman nangyayari or mangyayari pa lang. Darating at darating tayo dyan.
Tama talaga yan, sir. And sometimes, we always look forward to the future without realizing na our choices in the present are what determines our journey. And you said something about focusing in the present. How do we make sure to be mindful and focused on being in the present moment?
Siguro, these are just part of kung ano yung mga na-learn ko, ano yung mga so far pinapractice natin or personally pinapractice ko rin. We can always take time to look in the mirror, no? Tanungin mo yung sarili mo, naalaga mo pa ba siya? Tingnan mo yung pamilya mo. Na-realize mo ba? Nare-realize mo ba na andyan sila? Yung presence nila? Kasi minsan, minsan dahil sa nasanay tayo na andyan sila, parang wala na lang. Parang, okay, andyan sila. Wala akong problema. Pero minsan doon pumapasok yung, or dito natin nare-realize pag wala sila sa tabi natin. Pag wala na sila. Simba ko, no? Kasi doon pa natin na-appreciate. Doon pa natin sila na-appreciate. So that's the most important one. Just look into the mirror and ask yourself, saan ka na ba? Ano ba yung nakakapag-create ng anxiety mo? Tama po ba yung the way ka mag-isip? Rational ka pa ba? Or baka naman irrational ka na, no? So through that, mas madali kang nakaka-reflect kung nasaan ka, kung ano yung mayroon ka as of the moment. Tingnan mo kung ano yung pwede mong magawa para ma-improve mo yung sarili mo ngayon habang may habang may pandemic. And ano ba yung mga bagay na pwede mong improve sa sarili mo? Balikan ko lang yung sinabi ko ulit kanina, napaka-importante is kumain ng maayos. Ikaw, kumakain ka pa ba ng maayos? Nag-i-exercise ka pa ba? Natutulog ka pa ba ng sapat? Or tamang oras? Umiinom ka pa ba ng tubig? 8 glasses a day? Ito yung mga bagay na ah, napaka-simple lang, pero napaka-powerful para ma-improve ang sarili mo. Siyempre, since araw-araw na natin siya ginagawa, minsan hindi na natin siya na-appreciate, hindi na natin siya napapansin. Since basic needs na to, kumbaga routinary na lang yung ginagawa natin. Daily routine rather yung ginagawa natin.
Yeah. And what do we do if we are overwhelmed by bitterness and resentment over our past failures to fix up our lives? What if it feels like there is nothing for us in this existence except suffering and pain? What do we do?
Hmm. Kung may nangyari man sa past experience mo, if you feel in your past, no, forgive yourself and try again and try again and try again. Because life is not just about pursuit of happiness, no? It's also about finding the meaning of your suffering. Because without this suffering, remember guys, suffering is part of the process. It's part of the process of becoming of yourself. And without this suffering, hindi mo or hindi natin ma-appreciate yung happiness, no? Hindi natin ma-appreciate yung positive life experiences na mayroon tayo because we have nothing to compare with, no? Walang contrast, kumbaga. Kahit na masikip masyado ang jeep, hindi mo ma-appreciate kung di mo pa nasusubukan maglakad ng napakalayo. Let's say from SPC to Abrisa. Lahat tayo in this life, we suffer. All of us in this life suffers. Pero ilan lang sa atin yung nakakahanap ng meaning of these sufferings. Ilan lang sa atin ang nagpapatuloy and to keep pushing forward. There are only few of us, no? Perhaps who keep on trying to achieve the best that we could possibly be. Nakinig ako sa first episode niyo and I remember kung ano yung sinabi ni Ma'am J, no? Sabi niya doon, di ba? In some way, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Malalim masyado, no? It means that ang iyong suffering, yung paghihirap mo ngayon, ay hindi magiging suffering, hindi magiging mahirap kapag ka ito ay binigyan mo ng kahulugan. For example, ako as your teacher, medyo mahirap or may kahirapan minsan yung platform mayroon tayo ngayon. Kung nagkakaroon ako ng problema sa wifi, halimbawa, no, nakaka-disappoint minsan. Pero dahil mahal ko ang students ko, dahil mahal ko yung trabaho ko, dahil nakita ko yung meaning ng ginagawa ko, nung pagtuturo ko, hindi siya nagiging suffering para sa akin. Alamin mo kung ano ang nagbibigay ng meaning sa iyo, sa buhay mo, no? I-follow mo yun. Through that, you can live peacefully despite the suffering that you have. Kasi isipin natin yung mga less fortunate, kung ikukumpara natin sila sa atin, kung sila nga nakakayanan pa rin nilang ngumiti despite sa kanilang situation, nakakayanan nilang tumawa, no? This is because may meaning ang kanilang life. Yung iba nagsusumika para sa kinabukasan ng kanilang mga anak, yung iba mas nakafocus kung anong positive kaysa kung ano yung negative meron sila. Alam nila what they are living for. So, don't give up, no? Kung nahihirapan ka, forgive yourself. Alamin mo what gives you life meaning. And mabuhay ka for that. Gaya ng sinabi ko, look into the mirror and ask yourself.
And with that, we have reached the end of the podcast. Sir, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Ang dami naming natutunan na for sure
Yeah.
marirelate sa present.
Oo. Thank you so much for your incredibly profound and helpful insights po.
Thank you also for inviting me to this podcast.
Yes. And there we go. Leave a like down below if you enjoyed this episode. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to us if you haven't so that you'll be updated when we'll be releasing our next episode, which talks about the future. Once again, thank you so much for making time with us. Are there any last messages you want to say before we end this episode, sir?
Siguro ang masasabi ko lang is you have to enjoy the life that you have because we only live once, no? And we have to make the best out of it. We have to contribute to our community. We have to do something that is valuable to our community, to our society, so that we can find the meaning of the life that we have by having a positive impact on the other people's lives, especially to those we care about, no? To those people na nangangailangan, and even to yourself. No? Thank you again, no, for inviting me. I hope na may maging impact yung podcast na to, ang episode na to sa mga nakikinig. And love serves. And sa mga nakikinig dyan, I hope that you get enough rest and I hope that you are happy. Thank you so much. Sukran.